Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald. Today, we journey back to March 16th, 1544, when the streets of Glasgow became the stage for a brutal and bloody confrontation. This was the Battle of Glasgow, a struggle for power between two rival factions in the turbulent regency of Scotland's young queen, Mary, Queen of Scots. And if you're curious about other fascinating events that happened on this day in history, be sure to check out my blog at bagtownclans.com/thisday. The link will be in the description. The mid 16th century was a time of political chaos in Scotland. Following the death of King James V in 1542, his infant daughter, Mary, Queen of Scots, was left as the sole heir to the throne. With a child too young to rule, Scotland needed a regent, and that role fell to James Hamilton, the second Earl of Arran. However, Arran's leadership was far from secure. Scotland was deeply divided between pro-French and pro-English factions, as both powerful neighbours sought to influence the young queen's future. One of Arran's most formidable rivals was Matthew Stewart, the fourth Earl of Lennox. Lennox had his own ambitions for power and aligned himself with English interests, hoping to challenge Arran's regency. His loyalty to England placed him in direct opposition to the pro-French faction dominating Scottish politics. Tensions between these two noblemen had been simmering for some time, and in March 1544, the conflict came to a head in Glasgow. Lennox and his supporters controlled the city, using it as a base of operations against Arran. But Arran, determined to assert his authority, marched on Glasgow with a strong force. His army, composed of Highlanders, Lowland Scots, and French allies, vastly outnumbered Lennox's troops. As Arran's men approached, Lennox had little choice but to stand and fight. The battle erupted in the narrow streets and winds of Glasgow, with brutal hand-to-hand combat as both sides struggled for control. Arran's forces quickly gained the upper hand, using their superior numbers to overwhelm Lennox's men. The defenders fought fiercely, but they were ultimately driven back, and many were cut down as they attempted to flee. Lennox himself barely escaped with his life, retreating as Arran's forces occupied the city. The victory at Glasgow cemented Arran's position as Scotland's regent, at least for the time being, but the battle was just one episode in the larger conflict of the Rough Wooing, the violent struggle between Scotland and England over Mary's future. Only a few months later, English forces under Henry VIII would launch devastating raids across Scotland, attempting to force a marriage between Mary and his son, Prince Edward. As for Lennox, he was not defeated for good. He continued to play a significant role in Scottish politics, eventually switching allegiances and marrying Margaret Douglas, the niece of Henry VIII. His son, Henry Stewart, Lord Darnley, would later marry Mary, Queen of Scots, entangling the Stuart and Tudor dynasties even further. The Battle of Glasgow may not have been the largest or most famous battle in Scottish history, but it was a pivotal moment in the power struggles of the time. It was a battle not just for control of a city, but for the future of Scotland itself. Thank you for joining me today on This Day in Scottish History. If you enjoyed this tale of political intrigue and battlefield drama, be sure to check out my blog at bagtownclans.com/thisday for more historical events. Tune in tomorrow for another journey through Scotland's remarkable past. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste you back.